Hello and very dear students. Today I am going to record a video on a very interesting topic, that is the title of the novel Moths by Mohsen Hamid. In that novel we have the story of very significant characters of Lahore, and as a result we are able to find out what is the classification, what are the types of people, and how did they enjoy their life and how much they were different from their ordinary fellows in the city. That we have talked about in different videos and in different lectures. Today we shall be just talking and discussing about the appropriateness of the title and how does it work, what is the meaning of this title, how does it stand symbolically to represent the novel and the culture that has been represented inside the novel. So Maat Smoke is the title of the novel for today. As you can see in the slide, that is the title Maat Smoke. It's by me and we shall be talking about that. So the very first thing that we need to understand is here that how the title is there. It is Maat Smoke, the novel by Mohsen Hamid, written in 2001, probably 2001, and it was written. And then Darash Shahzad, the next banker, is the hero of this novel. We have read number of things about Darash Shahzad in different videos. He is a man who smokes a lot and is a part smoker therefore, and is addicted to heroin as well and many other type of drugs also. And he falls in love with his best friend's wife Uzi, and then he is the one who can be called a smoke because he takes this wife of his friend as the candle and falls around her, revolves around her, and ultimately is destroyed just into a smoke. So his own appetite is responsible for making him fall like a smoke. So in this way, the character of the hero of this novel, the protagonist of this novel, goes to directly link itself with the title Moth Smoke, that it's the smoke which is visible and moth disappears because of the shining burning light of the candle, which in this case is Mumtaz, the wife of Uzi in the novel. And the person who disappears and into just becomes a smoke of the moth, that is the kind of protagonist of the story. So here is what how we relate this moth smoke title with the main protagonist character of the story. In order to find more details, let us go into it and see what is a moth first of all. A moth, as you can see in the picture, it is just a kind of insect with the wings. It does come on the light and revolves around the light, and possibly it may be having some trouble in falling out with the light and then getting destroyed as well. And so, as a result, the moth is the symbol for the danger of life, and it could be fatal as well. It is attracted by the light. It is all the time in love with the flame, and without any intention, it comes forward and burns itself. And therefore, its attempt to come closer to the flame becomes the cause of its death. And so, Moth's love kills it without injuring the candle. So that's the type of interpretation of the word moth. We can say moth is a kind of life which wants to come close to the light because it is attracted by the light without intention or without any kind of benefit to achieve there. It revolves around the light of the candle and ultimately gets burnt up. So its desire to come around the shining object results in the death of the moth itself. So therefore, the word moth in the moth smoke is fatal, is injurious, is dangerous because the very psychology of the moth becomes the cause of the death of the moth. In the same way, if we proceed further, we find the moth doing what? The moth is going forward towards the light. It is a kind of pest, it's a kind of insect, and it's drawn towards the light. It takes the candle as beloved and it becomes the fan and sacrifices its life. So if the moth goes too closer to the flame, it definitely will be resulting in its death. So these two slides are meant to make us understand that moth becomes a lover of the light, and because of its love it goes forward, it tries to come closer to the light because it is attracted by the shininess of light. And when it goes too close to that, at that time the candle remains same, the shine remains same for some time, but the moth is immediately killed and its only smoke is visible. So therefore, the love of the moth, desire for the love of the shining object, that can result into the sacrifice of the moth. And it has been happening all the time, it has been doing all the time. So on the level of symbolic, we can say that this title is quite appropriate because here many characters come forward and fall in love with the other characters because of their shine, because of their attractiveness, and ultimately death comes in their share. Not only this is true in case of the human beings, but also in case of the situation. For example, if any situation which is attractive to the character, one of the characters that may be attractive, that may be thinking to be a beneficial situation, very soon it results to be very fatal and sacrificial situation for the same object. So Moth Smoke uh, does go to show that if you are a moth, you are a lover, you want to sacrifice, ultimately you will be no more. The candle will stay there, the brightness will stay there, the things will stay the same, but you will be no more. Only you will be resulting it yourself into a smoke. So going further with the same idea, let us see what further we can talk about. What is the smoke then in the novel? Moth is moth that we have discussed, and what is the smoke? Smoke is, as is taken in the novel, also the very central image of the novel. Darashiku embodies the moth. First of all, let's say that Darashiku is the moth, drawn to those things that are bright. Mumtaz, heroine in the crime, he is drawn to Mumtaz, first of all, because she is also bright. Then heroine, that is also, a kind of drug which appeals him, and then the crime which appeals him. All these things can be taken as candles for Dara. And Dara, when he attaches to Mumtaz, again burns himself. Mumtaz remains the same. Heroine is the very next thing with which he burns himself, and the only thing which is left is the smoke. Same is the case with the crime. That crime scene and crime stays the same, but Dara becomes the smoke in that case as well. In every fatal situation, he faces fatal attraction and is burnt up as well. So in this way, the very huge thing inside the novel is the smoke, that everything which is having a desire, having a kind of wish, having a kind of struggle, having a kind of ambition, this goes forward. In order to do that, and ultimately the result is the smoke. Smoke means nothing, it will fly away after some time into the air, it will be left nothing. So not only physically the sacrifice takes place, but also in case of symbol and metaphor, the life also becomes zero. So in that way, the symbol of smoke goes to say that whatever the efforts and desires of the people are, in order to join, in order to become round, in order to see how the good and attractive things are, their efforts cannot succeed. Ultimately, they will be failing, and so they will become as a part of the smoke of the world, and that smoke will disappear after some time. So, in this way, Dara also becomes smoke. Many other people also become smoke, and the attractions remain the same. This is what how the word goes. This is what how the word of the novel goes. See more what happens there. For example, here a kind of traditional story as we know about the Mughal king and Mumtaz. In that case, also Mumtaz was a candle, and Dara Shiku Shizad became the moth of that candle. As is the case with within the novel, that we see that Uzi is the candle, and in case of Uzi, this is Mumtaz who becomes the moth, and ultimately Mumtaz is destroyed. Mumtaz is not happy in that way as he should be. Same is the case with Daru, that he takes Mumtaz is the candle and becomes the moth himself, and then he circulates around Mumtaz, ultimately turns into smoke, and life is no more. Similarly, it can be understood when Uzi is candle, when Mumtaz is candle, when Daru is candle, at that time candle remains the same. But when they become, the very character become the moths, they are burnt, they kind of revenge takes place on the part of Uzi, that he lets his wife go to, even after knowing, he lets the thing happen, and as a result, he takes the revenge as well. So in case of Uzi and Mumtaz, Uzi is the candle and Mumtaz becomes the moth, and only smoke is left out. But on the other hand, if we see that this is Daru becomes the moth in case of Mumtaz, Mumtaz remains the same, but Daru is destroyed altogether. So in this way, in history also the similar kind of things have been happening, and here also. So appropriateness of the title is justified on the ground that every character in the novel tries to proceed life in the same struggling fashion as any character can be, but ultimately whoever tries to reach the next door, next level, or next kind of you can say importance or significance, the result is the smoke of the moth left there. Okay, and then what next comes there? It is the positive and negative side of the both. Daru, inside the novel, we see plays a game with the help of his tennis racket and tries to capture the moth, and sometimes he kills the moth as well. This game he is playing, and that game is the externalization of the idea and the thing which is present in his own mind. That if he plays moth with Mumtaz, definitely he would be destroyed, and if he is the candle and moth is Mumtaz, that she will be destroyed altogether. So in this way, we can see that Daru is a type of character who is sometimes admirable character, sometimes like likable character, but then he has his own flaws also. For example, he abuses his young servant most of the time and not paying him his salary. So in that way, many times this is Daru who becomes the moth, and many times this is Daru who becomes the candle also. For the sense of Manusi, the servant, he is the candle. For Mumtaz also, he is the candle. But then he is helpful in bringing the sacrifice of these two things and making them disappear from his life also. But on the other hand, if he becomes the moth, he is destroyed. So both are the things present in becoming moth and in being moth, and in that way, or being candle as well. Positive and negative sides of both these things have been talked about in the novel, and so the title is really very appropriate. I would suggest the students to see a type of tradition also that in our country, the modern lifestyle though has been introduced, but some are the ancient traditions of the class also present there. Sentimentality, for example, is present most of the time in our traditions, but here sentimentality is disappearing. In case of Mumtaz, in case of Daru, sentimentality is not there. In Lahore, for example, modern class people and well highly qualified people belonging to the business class, these are the people who can get the job, and ultimately, sometime it happens that people lose the jobs as well. And when they lose the job, they become very much distressed. Whenever they have the job, they are not that much destroyed. These are the people who visit the parties and fall in love with certain people. They can betray their friends as well. So Matsamok is the representation of the Pakistani culture and character, that in Pakistan these things keep on happening. For example, these days sentimentality and emotion is disappearing. What we do in the name of tradition is also done by us just by chance, and we are not that successful in that hiding of the absence of our sentimentality. In case of the cities like Lahore, people are very much jostling with each other. Some are getting jobs, some are losing job. So the novel, if we read with the angle that who is the moth, who is the smoke, and who's the candle, in that case also we can understand the person who gets the job, he is the person who would become happy for some time, but ultimately would be destroyed. And the person who loses the job, it is the person who turns into a smoke. Then the people are there without the regard of any tradition. They fall in love with the wives of their husbands and betray their friends as well. And the wives betray their husbands. Husbands betray their wife in that way. Nothing is left ultimately. There is the moth smoke that is left, and Pakistani character has become like that. So, therefore, appropriateness of the title is also present once again. Going on with the same, if you see that moth is the name of the fascination for the brighter shining objects. Moth is the name of passion of love, but on the other hand, Moth is powerless as well, because it is not that with his own will and wish he turns towards the candle. It is the brightness of the candle which attracts him, and so every moth is attracted by the brightness. Moth, therefore, is a helpless Pakistani who is attracted by those things which are unattainable. For example, love is unattainable for him, and so Pakistani would try to attain that thing which is unattainable, and in doing so, they will be circulating with the help of their wishes around the person or the object which helps them achieve those things, and so in that way, the continuity goes on. And ultimately, what happens? The things remain the same, but the person is burnt up. This is especially with reference to the people who want to leave their class, who have the ambition, and in that way they turn to the shining objects. These shining objects turn them into the smokes, and that is what the title of the Moth smoke goes to show us. Now, smoke can be taken as a type of metaphor. As you cannot see through the smoke, it creates ambiguity as well. So, mostly it is not clear if the smoke is there, who is who on the other side of the screen of smoke. And same is the case that it creates vacuum. The vacuum which results into emptiness, and emptiness is then filled up with the dreams. When we run behind the dreams, we live in the imaginary worlds. There, our expectations are there. But the smoke is the very thing which would hide our expectations, and it will give us the kind of place which is ultimately equal to zero, because smoke is equal to zero. It's for some time stays, ultimately disappears. Same thing happens with the people of Pakistan, with the people of modern society, that for some time they will be there, ultimately they will turn into the smoke. So this is the meaning of the smoke in the novel. We can conclude how the title of the novel Moth Smoke is appropriate with reference to the culture, the character, the situation present inside the novel. We can see that it's very appropriate because it reflects the lives of so many people. Life of Daru, the Uzi, Mumtaz, Murad Badshah, Manusi, that these are the people who sometimes play the role of Moth and sometimes play the role of the candle. But most of the time, whenever any character becomes candle, it remains the same. But on the other hand, if a character becomes the moth, very soon it loses its significance because it burns up and ultimately results into smoke only. In fact, this can also be taken as the struggle of the classes, and this can be taken as the expectation and hopes of the people that they sometimes succeed and sometimes result into smoke only. The power, which is, for example, candle is power and moth is powerless and helpless. Candle is very much indifferent to the power, very much indifferent to the moth which is circling around it. It continues to burn with its own wish. It's no more concerned with the falling of the moth, turning of the moth into smoke. And in that way, we can say that in our youthful people, very young people, we have number of people who are moth-like and number of people who are candle-like. For example, these moths continue to go around the young candles and ultimately fail in achieving the companionship of the candles, and the candles continue to burn because the new moths come. But meanwhile, what happens to the previous moth, that it is burnt up, it's turning into smoke, and then it disappears from its very life. So this thing keeps on happening in our culture in Pakistan as well, and that is why in many ways the title of the novel is quite appropriate. So we can say that when we have studied this kind of video, we have seen it, watched it, we can say that the title is very appropriate. It goes to reflect the lives of the many characters. It also talks about the ambiguity. It also talks about the changing roles. It also goes to discuss about the failure of the people and turning ultimately into smoke also. That is why the title of the Moth Smoke is very much appropriate with respect to the novel. So that was the
It's 16
video for
hours.
today. We have elaborated well what is moth, what is smoke, and what when we combine it together, it becomes moth smoke. Candle is not given the title. Candle is assumingly present in the word of the novel. But candle is very much responsible for converting these moths into the smoke as well. So when students make their assignment on moth smoke, they can take care of these points. And if they read the text, they can find these things inside the text, and they should use those text materials in order to make their assignments as good as possible, because the quotations from the text would work as the evidences of the claims which have been there or which the students will possibly make. So in that way, the whole video ends today. Hopefully seeing you in some next video. If you like it, you can go and subscribe the button, and then you can give your comments as well on YouTube or on Facebook. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you in some